Alva had always felt like a stranger to the gods. They knew the earth and sky and the ashen sea. They did not know her heart. "They killed my mother," she said softly. The father's voice was hard as stone. "The gods did not kill her, girl. It was a time. In the shadows of the witchwood trees they had come to leave an offering for the gods, a half-dozen hares to be skinned and splayed before the black stone altar. Father had caught the beasts himself, but it was to her he offered the knife. You are old enough, he said, 9 winters old. Aye, old enough." Alva shook her head. The thought of cold steel and warm blood. The girl shivered where she stood. Her elder brother would have slit their throats already, she knew. Now he was a wolf, a great wolf, a leader of the pack. Not a pup like me, she thought. "Next time," Alva said. It was a messy sacrifice. It always was. Father had to clean his hands afterward. Soon sheathed his long knife in the folds of his black cloak. "Next time?" he asked. "I promise," she said. "I'll honor the gods, Father. We shall see." Father stood tall, left the blood-stained altar. Aki was waiting by the tree line. He did not speak the words as well as his father, so he kept watch until the sacrifice was done. He was 13. He was as tall as a grown man, and strong as an ox, and handsome, too. All the other girls said so. "You did well, little sister," said Aki, smiling. He had eyes as blue as the sea, and a tangle of silvery blonde hair. They were alike in that regard, at least. "No," Alva muttered. I did not." He was one to talk. He had killed the sables that made his cloak, and hers as well, with his own bare hands. He was a warrior in the making, even at the age of 13. And Alva, she was no one, she thought. Weak. "I'll fetch the horses," Father said. He was old and grey, and not yet cowed by age like the others of his court. He had long white hair and a long white beard, with 100 years or more behind his eyes. He stopped outside the darkness. "Alva, there'll come a time when it will not be a rabbit under the knife." "I know," she said. "I'm ready. We shall see." Alva could hear the scowl in his voice as the crows came down to feast upon the offerings they had made. "The days are turning into nights," said Father, with a glance at the trees all frosted over. "Time has come to reap what we've sown. Trust you are ready?" "We are ready, Father," Aki said. He put an arm around his sister and held her close. Alva smiled. Aki asked about all kinds of things he never got the chance to ask when Father was around. About her studies and her games with the other children, about the end of the year, and if she had ever seen a dragon. "No," she answered. "The dragons are all gone." "Well, that's not true," Aki said with a smile. "I've seen one myself. A real dragon, all fire and scales and claws and teeth. I was out on the Ashen Sea when I caught hold of one with my fishing line." The story went on and on, with all kinds of twists and turns, till brother and sister both wheezed with laughter. It was bitter cold in the forests, but Alva felt safe and warm in her brother's arms. It was a feeling she knew would not last forever. Father returned with a great scowl on his face. Her heart sank into her stomach. "Eric and Ragnar are gone," Father said, matter-of-factly, "and the horses with them. I'm afraid they're not coming back." "What? That's impossible," Aki said. "You should know by now that anything is possible, child." Their father searched the clearing, furrowed his brow, and said, "The north road. It'll lead us back to the castle. Come." "I don't understand. What's happening, Father?" Alva asked. "There's blood in the trees, child. Our housecarls are dead." "Dead?" she gasped. "Dead. Could be bandits or temple folk, but—" "The High King?" Aki asked. "In the eyes of our people, I remain faithful to the king," Father said. "His Majesty would not so openly betray the trust of his vassals." He was not afraid, she realized. Perhaps annoyed, but not afraid. It was Aki's turn to sneer and scowl. "Then who?" I believe we'll find out soon enough, my son. That they hastened from the clearing, from the laughing crows and the blood-stained altar. Paths between the witchwood trees were wreathed in shadow, even in the morning light. In the trees were bound crows' cages of jewel-encrusted gold and silver in the gloom, with nests of sticks and twigs and pretty things filched from the fields of battle. The forest was dead, even to the crows. Their father did not speak. He made no sound, not a whisper or a prayer. He was not afraid, not of the trees, not of the missing housecarls, and certainly not the would-be assassins. Aki was twitching all over, hand on the hilt of his sword. The other hand he placed on Alva's shoulder. Crow God will not let us fall. I, father? No, he will not. Aki, Alva whispered. Are you afraid? I've never heard the forests this quiet before. He was silent for the longest time. I am afraid, but a man came out of the forest just now. I would fight him, just the same. He smiled half-heartedly. To keep you safe. Father made a sharp turn away from the north road, onto a sheltered path between evergreens and shadows. This path he followed with a heart of stone, without so much as a backward glance at his children. They entered a second clearing, ripe with a certain stench, and the taste of winter wind on the air, and the trees everywhere. I believe we've found our housecarls, father said. Take heed, children, there are godly men in this forest. There, at the center of the clearing, stood a white tree painted red. From the twisted branches were hung twin corpses, dark and dead. Wind had scoured the skin from their faces, but that did not stop the crows from digging in. They went for the eyes first. Always the eyes. The orbs burst with a rain of cold blood and water, dripping from the crows' beaks. Alva wanted to look away. Father will know if I do, she thought. 4 housecarls had their throats slit, and their stomachs opened for the carrion crows. Eric had been a brave young warrior, newly risen from his life as a farmhand, played games with the children back at the castle, and told stories of the wildlands and Woodland, the sunless horde of Ashkol. Then there was the freedman Ragnar, an old soldier. He had an infant girl, and a son no more than 3, in the village not a day's ride from the castle. They were good men, but here they had been made into monsters. More than monsters, Alva thought. They have been made into a petty sacrifice. In the meantime, Aki cursed and screamed. The gods, Eric, Ragnar, they were our friends. Father, who did this? He unsheathed his sword and raised it overhead. I will kill them. I will kill them myself. Where are they? You shall have your prey, boy. They're here, in this primordial wood, father said. He glanced over his shoulder toward the edge of the clearing, where the bodies of their horses had been discarded. Alva had not noticed them before, but it made her feel all the worse. They even killed the horses. You can come out now, father said. I've seen your dreadful work, but I think it's time we met face to face, if you're willing. From the trees came a ragged man, tall and broad and battered by the years, like a stone carved from the mountainside. He wore a blood-stained tunic, and his black hair was ragged as the rest of him. Skvargar, he roared, daring to speak their father's name. Ash Wolf. I am Harold, son of Raven, and I am here to take my revenge. He held in his hands a woodcutter's axe, dripping red with blood, and with the ragged man came 5 ragged warriors. They were poor men, clad in rags, and they were each a different sort. There was a red-headed woodling from the south, then a little wild man with wild eyes, eerie as the night, and a man with runes upon his flesh, runes of death. They had knives and axes, spears and slings, but not a real sword to be seen, not an inch of fine steel. Aki took a step forward, putting himself between Alva and the ragged men. He raised his sword warily, with a trembling hand. You called me Ash Wolf, said their father. I see a wolf before me now, Harold, son of Raven. I see a wolf cub, wild with a poor man's fury. Is this what your father would want? Slaughter before the eyes of children? And I've been so courteous a host until now. What? What are you talking about? Harold growled. I walk with two housecarls and no one else, because I do not fear the blades of broken men and thieves. You, you are the son of an oath-breaker. I'm afraid to say I remember your father well. I do believe he was an outlaw, one who caused a great deal of trouble for the realm. Raven was a great man. You killed him in cold blood. Harold advanced, flailing with his axe and squawking louder than the crows. You killed my father, he screamed. Slingstone struck father on the side of the head. He did not flinch, but a rivulet of blood ran down across his face. I'll give you that, he said, then turned halfway toward his son. Look after your sister, boy. He faced the ragged men. An arming sword flashed into his left hand. It was a sword as bright as moonstone, with runes upon the blade that spelled a riddle without answer. He drew his long knife as well, and in an instant became a whirlwind of steel, fighting 4 men at once without breaking a sweat. There were 6 of them in all. The wild man and the wotling crept around the side of the clearing. They were grinning at the children, licking their lips and gnashing their teeth. Like dogs, like rabid dogs, she thought. Aki, what's wrong with them? Alva asked. They've gone mad, her brother said. I don't know how or why. They're mad, Alva. Get down. He shoved her well out of the way and took another step forward. Alva tripped and fell, landing soft in a bank of fresh autumn snow, smelling of earth and worms and sweetness of the land. Alva wondered if the cold earth had known the taste of blood until now. Aki will win, she told herself. Aki is favored by the gods. And so is father. Father will save us. He was nowhere nearby. The ash wolf had felled 2 opponents already. The whirlwind carried on, away from the children. And Aki faced 2 alone. Seething, screaming, the woadling was the first to charge. The man had a hatchet and a wicked long knife, but neither had the reach of Aki's sword. It would be close. Full-grown man against a boy of 13. Aki fell back, and in the same motion his arming sword lashed out. The woadling howled as the broad blade slashed across his face. He teetered and fell to the ground, only to be trampled by the wild man, fighting with a short spear. Aki parried again and again. The spear kept him at a distance. Aki stared a long time at that spear, trying to guess its next move. He was intent to survive the wild man's assault, without a doubt, but his hand refused to stop shaking, and his breath was soft and weak. The gods are with us, the gods are with us, the gods are with us, Alva told herself. She only heard her heartbeat drumming in her chest. Tears mingled with the blood of man and beast. Crows were cawing, now louder than the ragged men, louder than her brother, louder even than her wheezing sobs. So much blood. Everywhere. Make it stop. Alva curled up into a ball on the ground, in the shadows of an ancient tree. Rot and dirt and the stench of death assaulted her. Oh gods, please have mercy. Please make it stop. Father skewered another man with his gilded rune sword. Harold stood alone against him. Alva saw the ebb and flow of their battle. Father was not yet tired. He was covered all over with scars and sores, though he didn't seem to mind. Harold swung wide with his axe. Father sidestepped the blow, struck him across the back of the leg. Harold met the earth with a cry. Father stepped on his hand, breaking bones beneath the heel, smiling as the man screamed. Harold released the crude iron axe and rolled out of the way. He returned to his feet, sneering at the ash wolf, who remained still as stone and calm as the sea. From his belt, Harold withdrew a knife of his own. You will die, you rat! Alva screamed as her father stood still, heedless of the blade. The knife sank into the meat of his chest, between ribs, but it failed to reach his heart. It missed the mark by an inch. Thinking the wolf would fight back, the ragged man had been quick and careful. The wolf did not fight. did not howl in pain either. Father smiled and laughed. "You'll have to do better than that," he said. "I'm not a rat, as you say. I am a plague. The gods are with us. The gods are with us," Alva thought. No man could survive that. No mortal man. But father was more than mortal. The gods were with him. Crows fluttered down to feast upon the bodies of the slain. "Monster!" Harold wailed. "You are a monster, a witch!" He could barely get out the words before father slashed his throat from ear to ear. Harold fell back across the earth and snow, dead before he hit the ground, and the crows fed upon him as well. Father leaned upon the nearest tree, coughing up blood as he withdrew the knife from his chest. "Fool," he said, quiet as a dream. "How dare you challenge us?" He was in a trance, almost, such that he did not hear his son cry out. "Father! Alva!" Aki had broken the wild man's spear with his arming sword. That did little to stop him. The wild man's hands closed tight around the boy's pale throat, seeking to strangle the life from him. "Alva!" Alva turned to her brother. Father smiled slightly, lost in his own head. He had staggered away from the hanging tree and further away from his son. He turned now, but he moved slowly across the forest floor. Too slow, Alva realized. So she searched the clearing for something, anything, and she spied a hatchet fallen to the ground. So much blood. Crows were screaming in her ears, and she was still crying. "Alva! Help! Aki," she wheezed. Aki, she thought. For Aki. Her hands curled around the splintered shaft, dragging it across the ground. When she reached the wild man, she screamed. The hatchet flew from her hands, but it struck him in the back with a loud crunch. Aki pried the dirty hands from his throat and leapt out of the way. The man swayed from side to side before he fell, twitching and screaming into the snow. Aki ran to his sister. "It's all right, Alva. It's okay. I did it," she whispered. Aki wrapped his arms around her. "You did good, Alva. We're all okay. And that one had it coming." I did it." "No, you did not." Father's voice. Come to stand over the body of the wild man, a scowl upon his face. "He's not dead. Look." The man was twitching still. The digits of his fingers danced without order. His voice could still be faintly heard. Skvarga held in his hand the blade that had pierced his chest. He should be dead, Alva thought. Father had set his ruined sword before the hanging tree and sheathed his own knife once again. He smiled at the blade that had so nearly ended his life, and looked at his daughter. "You have to finish what you started, Alva," he said at last. "Kill him." "Father," Aki barked. "Leave her alone, Father. I'll do it. Your loyalty is admirable, but this is her kill, not yours. You did not so much as scratch him, son." Father knelt before Alva, smiling. He offered her the knife, drenched in his own blood. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You must kill him." I don't." Alva didn't want to leave her brother's warm embrace. It was now so cold she could see her breath, ice crystals forming in her hair. Alva took the knife from her father's hand, the steel so cold it felt like a firebrand against her flesh. "You don't have to do this," Aki told her. His words were hollow and distant. He followed her to the wounded man, the dying man. "The man I have to kill," she thought. At least he laid face down in the snow. But he looked at her sideways, trying to scream with his mouth full of blood and mud and broken teeth. Faintly, she thought she could hear him beg for mercy. "There's nothing you can do for this man, and your brother will not always be here to protect you," said Skvarga, the ash wolf, favored by the gods. "You'll have to protect yourself sometimes, and sometimes it seems you'll have to protect him. Now finish what you started." "I have to do it," she thought. I have to. The gods are with me." She almost mouthed the words. "The gods are with us." There was sleek, red blood. So much blood. They could stop, she had pleaded to the gods. Do it yourself, they had answered, cold tears streaming down her face. Alva raised the long knife and let it fall.